second. Let's see if it worked. All right. Half a day. Louisa, are you there? Okay, we are live now. Woohoo! It all worked. And we are also going live on Instagram. So I was able to get that going. Okay, all right. Woohoo! All right. Half a day todos hamzugwana hudzung. This is Estige un Nuevo episode Fanachu, and we are almost to the end of 2024. It's been a long, fascinating year, but I'm excited that we are finishing this year strong. We have had a number of you ask for it, and courtesy of one of our most fanatical and fervent and faithful fans on Fanachu, Jordine Uggan. Some of you may remember Jordine. Her father is a well-known figure here on island, see John Uggan. Jordine, who has been living for a while in Aotearoa, New Zealand. And so when news was going around about protests in Aotearoa in New Zealand, I reached out to Jordine and I said, Jordine, do you know of any Maori? Do you know of anyone in New Zealand who can come on Fanachu, who can talk to us about what's going on out there? Because I know some people, but they all have PhDs and I already have a PhD. And if there's two PhDs in a room, we'll put everyone to sleep and we'll weigh everything down with our student loan debt. With all of the PhDs in the room, can you think of somebody who's in the community, who's creative, who's out there? And she messaged back and she said, I've got somebody in mind, and I want to introduce to you now, Louisa Opetaia. Thank you so much. Louisa is Samoan and Maori, a publicist, a filmmaker, and a whole number of things. And so she has been gracious enough to join for one of our last episodes of 2024 here on the Fanachu podcast. And one thing that so many of you have been asking for, a solidarity episode with Aotearoa and New Zealand. This is something that we try to do because the Pacific is big, the Pacific is huge, and colonization has separated us. And so we try on Fanachu to have episodes where we connect our issues and we connect our stories. And we rely on people who are generous, such as Louisa, such as Jordine, to share stories, to help connect us across the Pacific and across the corporate colonial divisions that divide us. And so, Louisa, I'm so happy that you are here to share stories with us and to be in solidarity.
Kia thank you so much for having me. I feel so privileged to be the one to join you today to talk a little bit about what's happening here in Aotearoa. So kia ora koutou katoa, ngā mihi nui kia koutou, ko te rangi haukaha te maunga, ko taonge te roto, ko tinana te waka, ko te rāroa te iwi, ko te rāroa te marae, ko tipene te whānau, ko Louisa tōku ingoa, tihei mauri ora. As you've heard, my name is Louisa. I do live here in Aotearoa. I was born here in South Auckland, and I lived here for the first 10 years of my life. But then my family decided to move to Australia. So I have a Maori mum and a Samoan dad with Fiji, who has Fijian links as well. But I grew up in Australia. So quite a lot of families here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, do have to move away from our islands to be able to have different opportunities and especially different economic opportunities. So my parents were part of a migration that happened back in the 1970s and 80s. So I grew up in Australia, did all my high school and university there, and then I married an American. So I moved to the US. So I was living in California, and he was in the US Navy. So we were stationed in Japan for 7 years, and then also in Hawaii for 7 years. We parted ways in 2013, and I moved back home to Aotearoa, New Zealand. So I've been here for over 10 years now, going on 11. And but I had been away for 27 years. So it's a long time to be diaspora. It's a long time to be away from your, from your land, from your tribe, from your extended family. But I'd always felt the call to come home had always been strong. And I was able to be connected, even though I lived so far away. Haka, actually, so Maori performing arts. Even though I didn't live in New Zealand, I've done that for my whole life, and I come from a family with a strong Haka performing arts background. So I was in Maori performing arts groups in Australia, and then also I joined a group when I was living in California. I joined a group while I was living in Japan. And I'm in a group now at home as well. So I've always done Maori performing arts, and that has really helped me to, I am going to, no, go away.
Oh, hello. Oh, we lost Louisa for a second there, but I'm hoping that she will. Oh no. Hello. We've lost Louisa. Oh no, but hopefully she will be back in just a second. But while we are waiting for her to rejoin, let me share with you some of the issues. Let me share with you very quickly. So one of the reasons why we've asked Louisa to join is, of course, because one of the big things that has been happening, and this is something that has not just been happening in the last month, but actually much, much longer, is, of course, but it has really captured the region and the world's imagination in the last month, because there was a 9-day Hīkoi, a 9-day protest march walk that took place. And then there was a particular, there was a Haka, there was a protest performance, a protest act that took place in the New Zealand Parliament. And so because of all of this, it really reached sort of an international scale. And so, and I'm hoping that Louisa will be able to come back. I'm hoping that she'll be able to join again so that she can share about this. But to give us a little bit more background on the context here, this is a news report from Al Jazeera, which talks about the march, which Louisa joined, and then also the Haka that took place.
Under grey skies, the indigenous people of New Zealand, the Maori, are marching. The protest began on Monday from New Zealand's northernmost point, gaining support along the way through towns and cities on a 250-kilometre journey. It's the latest display of defiance from Maori people who oppose a bill that would redefine how the country's founding document is interpreted in law. The fabric of New Zealand society is based on a treaty signed by the British Crown and Maori chiefs in 1840. The new bill would change how that founding document is implemented. It was tabled by a member of the right-wing coalition government.
New Zealanders have come to regard themselves as based on ancestry or one side of a partnership instead of New Zealanders.
Others view the changes as an attack on the country's founding document and a threat to Maori rights.
I'm a Labour Party member, but I'm also a proud Maori and New Zealander. And I denounce this foul attempt to rewrite the constitutional framework of this nation.
And when the vote came to push the bill past its first reading,
New Zealand National.
49 votes in favour.
Member of Parliament Hana Rafiti Maipi Clark, the country's youngest...
There you are. Yay. Okay. So but now that you're back, please go ahead and keep introducing yourself. I was just going to give some background on some of the protests, but Sidus Mase, I'm glad that you're back, Louisa. Go ahead.
So sorry about that. So basically what I was just trying to say was that I've always been connected with my language and with my culture because of Māori performing arts, and I've had the privilege of performing around the world. And so, yeah, so the subject of this podcast, you know, Haka as a political act, I really feel strongly about, yeah, because of my background and also because of what's happening at the moment. So yeah, so like you said, I'm a publicist and I'm also a filmmaker. I'm an entrepreneur, so I run my own business with my sister here in Auckland. It's a tours business. So actually, we have the privilege and honor of taking people who come here from all around the world to, yeah, connect them to our whenua, to our land. We teach them about our history. We teach them some of our language. And so we really focus on the kinds of travelers, yeah, the kinds of tourists that are interested in what we have to share, which is, yeah, a lot of people come here because they want to see hobbits and they want to go to Hobbiton and that kind of thing. And if you want to do that, there's a million tour companies that can do that for you. But if you want to come to Aotearoa and you want to be connected to the Indigenous people of this land, if you want authentic Indigenous experiences, then we at Glorious, that's what we're about and that's what we're here for. I'm a mother of 3 grown children who are all studying at the moment, and hopefully one day soon somebody will graduate and get a job. And I'm also a grandmother of 3 beautiful boys who are growing up on this land here in Aotearoa, New Zealand. And so a lot of what I'm doing, everything I'm doing actually is for their generation, those kids that are coming through. So yeah, so that's a little bit about me. I've been all over the place, and as a person who works in the tourism industry, I do travel a lot. So I'm here in New Zealand right now because it's summer and this is a busy time for us to work. But in the New Zealand winter, I also take people around the Pacific, which, yeah, obviously I'm very connected to, and we take people further afar as well. So it's very much event-based tours, festivals and things around the place. I have been to Guam before, and yeah, I really enjoyed my time there. So once again, thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you so much for being here. And I love, I love everything about sort of Glorious Tours, from the way that it's moving past sort of the way tourism starts with just the crassness, the exploitativeness of it, and it moves to the more grounded, community, culturally informed, authentic experiences, but also just the way that it's connected to your family. I love how, connected to in honor of your mother, correct?
Correct. Yeah,
And
our mum's name was Gloria. So the name Glorious comes from her. And yeah, pretty much everything that we do is because of her. So she was a very connected woman. She passed away sadly in 2017 from breast cancer. So yeah, everything that we do is for her. She actually had this vision of this business for us a long time ago. She was the one who encouraged me and my sisters to, like, hey, you should, we're good at this, we're good at we know about hospitality and how to take care of people. So this is a job that we could do. So this is the thing, right? I've lived all over the world. I've had people come and visit me for many, many years, and I did my own, what I used to call my VIP tours, but I didn't get paid for it. It was just for, family and friends and friends of friends. So it's funny now that I'm actually doing this as a business because, yeah, I've been doing it my whole life for free.
oh, thank you for sharing your background, and thank you for introducing that company to us. And so I'll also put onto the live stream sort of a link to where you can check out more about Glorious, because here in Guam, we've been working on restarting our tourism industry after the pandemic. And unfortunately, a lot of the discussion is really just focused on bringing back more tourists and, not using the opportunity of the pandemic as that chance to retool tourism, to
Yeah.
really rethink, were these models helping the community? Were these models really aligned with cultural values? And so, unfortunately, I don't see I really love the model of, family, community, cultural based, all of those things that I see from Gloria. So thank you so much for sharing that.
That's absolutely what we're all about. And that's the thing. So I've been working in this industry. This is my 8th season. So I only work here, during the summer. But yeah, sometimes, I pick up guests from their hotels down in Auckland and Auckland City, and they're so excited that they have a Maori guide. So our tourism and hospitality industry is really dominated by non-Maori and even non-New Zealanders. A lot of people come here to work, and they have, visas where they can come, working visas where they come from like the US or from the UK or other places like that, and they work here, which is great. It's great that they get an opportunity to come and work. But unfortunately, our guests who are coming are also from those places, so they kind of say to me, everybody who's that we've met in the restaurants, like waiting on the tables, they're all from where I'm from. Like, where are the locals? And especially, where are the Māori? Sometimes, tourists come here and the only Māori face they see is mine, because they don't come where we are, and so they'll say to me, hey, what do you guys eat? And I'm like, oh yeah, we eat hangi, which is like a traditional way of cooking food. And they're like, oh, how do we eat that? And I'm like, it's not where your hotel is in downtown, it's in South Auckland, where I come from. And they're like, oh, we want to come, where you guys are. And so that's the thing. So, and a focus for our business is South Auckland. Now, South Auckland, for those people who don't know, gets a lot of negative stereotypes, about us. So we're not a high, economic place. But the people who come from here, we're not the richest, but we're rich in culture. We're rich in love. Like, we're proud of where we come from. And so, yeah, so part of our business is that we do day tours, and we pick people up who are staying in these hotels right by the airport, which is where South Auckland is. And we take them around, and we take them to a local cafe that's run by either a Māori or a Pacific, owner. We take them to eat our traditional food, and we do other things, because Auckland is the biggest Polynesian city in the world. But actually, the tourists who come here don't get to experience that. And so we realized that there was a big gap in the market, and we were like, actually, and it's good for our community too, because I want them to know, hey, don't think that just because you're brown and you're from South Auckland, you can't do what you want to do, because actually there's people who come here from all over the world who want to be connected with you, who want to understand, your life and what you do and your history, and they want to hear your stories. So it's about empowering our community as well.
Thank you. No, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And to everyone watching right now, don't forget, if you have comments, if you have questions about, we're going to get into now the specifics of some of the protests that have been happening in Aotearoa, but it's great. Louisa, thank you so much for introducing yourself in this way, because we have been having some intense conversations locally about tourism, and you can also ask about tourism and some of the things, we look to each other in the Pacific. Chamorros in the Marianas, we've long looked to the Maori in terms of language and culture. What can we learn in terms of some of the things that they might be doing in terms of sustainable tourism, ethical tourism? I love this more than the hobbits,
Right.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
And
definitely.
So let's move on now to the Hīkoi and the Haka, and because I know we've got a few people that are very, very eager to know more about this. And so I was about to, oh, that's right. In the Al Jazeera clip, I was going to show, here we go. Okay, so let me just start that clip from the beginning, because I started to play it just as you had disappeared from the Zoom. All right, here we go.
Under grey skies, the indigenous people of New Zealand, the Maori, are marching. The protest began on Monday from New Zealand's northernmost point, gaining support along the way through towns and cities on a 250-kilometre journey. It's the latest display of defiance from Maori people who oppose a bill that would redefine how the country's founding document is interpreted in law. The fabric of New Zealand society is based on a treaty signed by the British Crown and Maori chiefs in 1840. The new bill would change how that founding document is implemented. It was tabled by a member of the right-wing coalition government.
New Zealanders have come to regard themselves as based on ancestry or one side of a partnership instead of New Zealanders.
Others view the changes as an attack on the country's founding document and a threat to Māori rights.
I'm a Labour Party member, but I'm also a proud Maori and New Zealander. And I denounce this foul attempt to rewrite the constitutional framework of this nation.
And when the vote came to push the bill past its first reading,
New Zealand National.
49 votes in favour.
Member of Parliament Hana Rafiti Maipi Clark, the country's youngest MP in 170 years, delivered a response that has since gone viral. Tearing up the bill they were there to debate. Not even the Prime Minister supports the bill.
Treaty issues are complex. They've been negotiated, debated, discussed over 184 years. It's simplistic to assume that you can, through the stroke of a pen, resolve all of that.
But it passed its first reading nonetheless, even as the echoes of the Haka ring across the country. Harry Wilton, Al Jazeera.
Right. Okay. Oh, it was incredibly powerful to see the images of the Hīkoi, the people moving, just, the diversity of people. And, I also watched another interview that you did, and I'll put the link to that so people can check it out as well, in which, you talked about the flags of other Pacifica peoples also showing their support, but also to think that 40,000 or more people were gathered in around the parliament on the last day of a 9-day protest. And then sort of this powerful moment in which, Maori elected leaders, representatives, perform this haka. And I think people, even if they don't understand some of the cultural significance, can still feel it. But I'm so glad that you are here as somebody who is well-versed in sort of the culture and who practices it. And so, can you talk to us about some of the issues here? I think for many people, or soccer teams do, the haka is something that a soccer team does or a rugby team does. Many people think of it only related to that. If you're familiar with it, you think of it in just a sports context. They don't know of a deeper cultural significance. And then, so can you tell us more about why were people protesting? What are some of the issues here, and how did the Hīkoi, the haka, the culture, get into this?
Yeah, excellent. So the Hīkoi is a result of a bill that was brought before Parliament, which is to, they wanted to introduce principles about the bill, about the treaty. So the treaty, as the clip said, 1840, our ancestors signed a treaty with representatives of the Queen of England. But before that, in 1835, my ancestors, so the chiefs from where I come from in the north of New Zealand, they did what ended up being called He Haka Pūtanga, which is our Declaration of Independence. So we needed that document first, which thank goodness they did that. And that kind of signaled to England and to the world that we're here and we're a nation. And so that's how people started to deal with us as a nation, because before that we were a number of tribes. We weren't unified. We actually were, kind of fighting against each other, but we also were creating alliances with each other and that kind of thing. And then when the Europeans started coming, here in big numbers. So 1769, Captain Cook discovered us. And then not long after that, Europeans started coming. And so by 1835, we were having a real problem with the Europeans that were coming here. They were causing massive problems for us. They didn't respect our laws, our rules. And so we realized that actually we need to join together as a people so that we can, so that we can talk to their sovereign about what's happening here. So 1840, a number of chiefs got together up where I come from, and then that treaty got signed in Waitangi. So Waitangi is the place, and then it traveled around the country, and other chiefs from other districts signed it as well. Not all of the tribes signed the treaty, so that's something that we have to acknowledge as well. But yeah, so the treaty has been around since 1840. And basically, we believe that we never, although we signed a treaty, although our ancestors signed a treaty, we never ceded our sovereignty. And so we as Māori people believe that we still retain our sovereignty. The treaty itself is only 3 articles. It is written in Te Reo Māori. It's written in our language. But basically, yeah, it's only 3 articles. So there's been lots of misunderstandings, misinterpretations of it. But the basic treaty itself, it's not that difficult to understand. Unfortunately, a lot of people in my country, especially people who have been here for many generations who are not Māori, they've never read the treaty. They don't understand it. Obviously, if you don't speak my language, that's going to be a problem that you might not understand it. You have to rely on interpretations of it. But yeah, we believe that the treaty has not been honored. And pretty much before the ink was even dry on the document, it was not being honored. So the treaty gives us rights to our own treasures. And we believe our treasures are our language, our culture, our fishing rights, our, customary ways of life, greenstone, our precious, anything precious to do with us that we should retain the rights to. So of course, that hasn't happened. There's been massive, instances of treaty breaches throughout history ever since 1840 until today. So I marched for the treaty. So there's this treaty principles bill, which is like what has, it's, I believe, threatening the treaty. And so that was kind of what started the Hīkoi, which is the march. But I didn't march against the treaty principles bill because I don't believe that it is going to pass in Parliament. I marched because I'm for the treaty. I want the treaty to be honored. I believe that the intention of our ancestors who signed it were for us who came, their descendants, but also for all the people that were coming at that time and all the people that would come in the future. So all of the people who live here now who are not Māori are here because of the treaty. So to me, my plea always was, please allies, please non-Māori, we need your help to be able to save our language, to be able to save our culture. We're only just reached 1 million people, but we're in a country of 5 million, and not all of that 1 million live in New Zealand. A lot of them live in Australia and live in other places around the world. So we're such a small people compared to, a lot of others. So I believe we can't save our language and our culture by ourselves. We have amazing allies who came along and marched with us, held up signs, who understand that the reason they can be here is because of the treaty. So that's always been my plea. I marched for my own reasons, which is because I believe in the treaty. I think it's a beautiful document. If only it had been honored. The intention of our ancestors, I think, was good. And I know that they had their eyes on the future when they signed it. But unfortunately, the people who signed it on the other side, they pretty much just were like, okay, yes, we've signed this, but we're still gonna, do all these like nefarious things to like seal land and do all these other things that are against the intention of the treaty. So I marched for a positive reason, which is because I'm for the treaty.
Yes, and thank you for clarifying that, because I think that's a good thing to definitely put out there, that because if the bill was not sort of going to pass, then it's still important for people to be out there and make that statement that whether or not this bill passes or not, take the stand, support the Maori people. Um, because the bill represents, I think, from what I saw of it, it represents sort of this idea that, and we've seen this from the United States, for example, like people feeling that non-white groups, indigenous groups have special rights, they've got too much stuff, and
Right.
so you vote for somebody like Donald Trump because he promises that he's gonna, and take it away from them and give it to the real people. And so, and it's all very twisted, because sometimes the people who are saying that they're the real ones are the most recent migrants or recent migrants, and they're trying to take stuff away from the oldest indigenous people to the land. And so I think it's so important that you are reminding people that, whether with even if this bill fails, stand and show support, because it's part of this longer struggle of the Maori to retain, to assert, to hold on to their sovereignty in
Right.
a settler colonial state, where there's a government and all this infrastructure around them that might want to take things away from them.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, so that's the point as well. Like I said, we're for the treaty, but these kinds of attacks on the treaty, they come around every so often. And one of the criticisms that I got was, well, it seems like the Treaty Principles Bill is about equality, and why would they be marching against equality? We're not against equality, but what we want is equity, because right now we are not equal. Unfortunately, in my own country, on our own land, we are the highest in the negative statistics. So high, negative health outcomes, education, poverty, addictions, incarcerations, all of those things we're leading in the negative statistics for. And it's not just us, Indigenous people all around the world who have had to suffer through colonization. We all have these same negative outcomes. And so, there are programs that are for us to help us to improve those negative outcomes. And under this feeling of equality, they want to get rid of these programs that actually will help our people. And that's what I don't want. That's what I don't appreciate. We have a shorter life expectancy than other non-Māori who live in our country. And that breaks my heart, because people like my mum, who didn't live past 60, it's not just a piece of paper. It's not just statistics. It's real people in our families who don't live long enough, to take advantage of their golden years.
Oh, terrible. A sobering reminder. Thank you. And I wanted to, you were kind enough to share some of these images from your participation in the Hīkoi. And so did you
Yeah.
want to talk about, because there's definitely a lot of people here. I see a lot of and
Yeah.
wow, it's amazing.
I'd love to. So I joined the Hīkoi here in Auckland, and we marched over the Harbour Bridge, and there were tens of thousands of us. Unfortunately, the numbers we're not really sure on, because it's hard to figure out how many people are actually there. But we felt such positivity on the march, not just from Maori people. Of course, we were there, but our what we call tangata tiriti, or the people of the treaty. So our non-Māori were there in force as well. So a lot of Pākehā, or white people, a lot of Pacifica. So I talked about, I saw a Niue flag, I saw a Hawaiian flag, I saw Samoan flags, Tongan flags. So yeah, our Pacific people really came and supported us as well, which was part of my message, was just encouraging, hey, this is not just a Māori fight. This is something where we need our people to come and help. our other people to come and help. So yeah, so tens of thousands of us walked across the Harbour Bridge, and that was great. It was amazing. And then, so that was on day 4, I think, of the 9-day march. And then on the final day, I drove to Wellington. So it's about a 10 or 12-hour drive each way. Drove overnight, marched that day, and then drove back home again because it was important for me to be there. So some people say 40,000 people, some people say 100,000 people. I don't know the numbers. So this is the thing. We walked from one end of our capital city to the other, and the messages that went out to all the people were, don't go. So we ended up at Parliament Grounds, which is this photo that you're showing right now. The beehive is our Parliament building. And they said to people, don't go straight to the Parliament Grounds, you know, because otherwise by the time the marchers get there, there won't be anywhere for them to be. Well, people didn't listen to that. So by the time we got to Parliament Grounds, it was already packed. A lot of people didn't actually come on the march. They just came to Parliament Grounds. So it was hard for them to really get a good grasp on how many people showed up. But anywhere between 40,000 and 100,000 have been the estimates. But again, it was positive. There were songs being sung. People brought their kids. Yeah, you can see in this photo here. So right in front of the big round building, that's Parliament Grounds, but all the streets surrounding it were also, just full of people. And so, yeah, it was amazing because, it sucks that we have to come together in this way because our government is implementing programs that are not, in our best interests and are not beneficial for the Indigenous people of this land. But the fact that we can come together, and when we come together, it's powerful. That is a sign of positivity to me and the other 100,000 people who came out that day and who came out across the 9 days of marching.
Ooh, thank you. It's so inspirational to see all of these images, and wow. And also,
well, I just have to say, so this, we've been marching, we've been protesting for a long time now. So in the 1970s, our, my parents' generation, they marched to save our language. And the reason why we march is because we know it can make positive changes. So they, in 1970, mid 1970s, they marched from the top of the North Island down to Wellington to Parliament. They presented a petition saying, hey, New Zealand government, you need to value our language and help us to save it, because if we don't, it's gonna die. And so they did put programs in place, and they put money towards saving our language. And they started up these language nests, which was like kindergarten aged kids, like pre-K, like babies. And then they went to school, and they were able to learn in our language. And then they went to, high school, and they were able to learn in our language. And then they went to university, they were able to learn in our language. And now those kids are leading the way. So it's those generations who actually led this protest march. And Hannah, the one who ripped up the bill in Parliament, she's a product of that as well. So if our people didn't march back in the 70s, maybe this march today wouldn't have happened, and it definitely wouldn't have happened in the way that it did. So some people were like, you're one of those people who wasted their time marching. To me, it was not a waste of time. Yes, I understand that some people think we were marching against the treaties, the principles bill. I wasn't there for that. I don't think that's going to pass. I'm past that already. I'm into now supporting this movement that's happened here in Aotearoa and is spreading around the world. And that's a movement of positivity and just saying, hey, honor the treaty. That's what we're asking for. But I'm so inspired by the next generation. So Hannah, she's our youngest member of Parliament. She's only in her very early 20s. She's my daughter's age, but she's been raised by amazing parents, grandparents. Her, great-grandmother was one of the ones who marched back in the 70s and led the march. So she comes from a strong genealogy of activism. But man, yeah, she is such an inspiration, and I feel for her, and I feel for her family, because she has, yeah, there she is right there. She has a lot of pressure on her. She receives death threats constantly. She's had people break into her house. They've had to put extra security on her. You know, she's a target because of what she's done. You know, she won her seat in her electorate against a really seasoned, well-known, another Maori politician. But she's a breath of fresh air, and I just love to see her shine. And I mean, and it's hard because she's in Parliament where things are not designed for us, you know, and she's trying to represent the people who put her there in the best way that she can. And she's a baby. So any support that I can give her, I want to. But I also acknowledge, you know, her parents and her grandparents, and they raised her to be the amazing woman that she is. So, you know, she really has put us on the map. And like you said, maybe before people saw her do a haka in Parliament, people didn't know what a haka was, or they only knew haka from sports. But actually for us, man, we haka whenever we feel like it. You don't tell us when we can do a haka and when we can't. And, you know, the Speaker of the House, when she started the haka, rolled his eyes, tried to say, don't do it, you know, and she just carried on. And that's what we do. It's like, this is our way of expressing ourselves, and we're going to do it when we feel like it. And, you know, even just watching it now, it always just gives me goosebumps. And that's the thing. So haka is an expression, you know, and so in the old days, they did it before war, before conflict, before combat. If you did a good enough haka and you intimidated your enemy enough, maybe you wouldn't have to fight. So, you know, that was part of it, but it was also to, yeah, inspire the warriors, get their blood flowing, you know, get their energy going. It's a massive amount of energy that it takes to do a haka, and it influences people. So even though you don't understand our language, it doesn't matter. The intention, you know, our intention is clear, and it affects people in a way that nothing else does.
No, thank you. Thank you for bringing that context to it. In fact, let me get the video. Let's just watch it again. Because I definitely enjoy watching it, and I think I definitely and you can give just a little bit more context to it too, because I know that people, it's when something goes viral, a lot of the context disappears from it. And so people, because I think so it's in Parliament. There's as you said, it passed the first reading, but then of course it has to go on then to another reading, but then ultimately it's going to fail, most likely, right? But then, so let's just watch it again though, and this guy here doesn't seem very happy. He definitely looks like he's in The Hobbit or something like that. This guy right here.
We're in the middle of a vote. The ayes have it. First, a party vote's been called for.
Mr. Speaker.
A party vote has been called for. There's a process here.
Pāti Māori.
E ono ngā pōti e whakahe. Kawana! Ka whakamanu whiriti a koe au! Kamate, kamate,
The House is suspended until the ringing of the bells. The gallery is to be cleared.
Okay, wow.
Yes. So that was live on TV, so parliamentary TV. So a lot of people were watching live at the time. A lot of people don't watch parliamentary TV, so they had to wait for it to go viral to see it. But yeah, it was an amazing show of, so the party that she comes from, she got to be the one who, delivered how many votes they had and whether they were for or against it on the first reading. So that's what she says at the beginning. She's like, we're against. And then she just starts up. So she had wanted to talk. So they let, people kind of talk, either whether they were for or against the bill. They had some time to give some comments about it. And unfortunately they wouldn't allow her to talk. So only one member of her party was allowed to talk, which was the male member that you can see in the haka as well, Rawiri Waititi. He's one of the co-leaders. So the opportunity to speak on behalf of the party went to him, which is, it's correct. He is the party co-leader. But she was like, you know what? I didn't get to speak, so I'm going to take my time now and I'm going to step into this space and show you what I really think about this. And actually, so yeah, there's been a bit of backlash from it. So they closed Parliament down, and then the next day she was named, which is like the worst thing that you can do. She also lost like a day's pay. She kind of got suspended. Yeah, and now the three of them from the Maori Te Pāti Māori, who you can see clearly in the haka, and one other member of a different party, but he joined in, they've been sent to the referred to the Privileges Committee because of the haka that they did. So now they have to go and, be reprimanded, I guess, for it, if that's going to happen. But it's just ridiculous. Like I said, the criticism of her was, oh, it was inappropriate for her to do the haka in the house. And we're like, well, actually, no. To us, in our culture and our way of looking at it, that was the perfect place to do a haka. And she did it with the support of all of us.
No, thank you for making the connection to how activism in the past has helped to shape sort of the generation of today to make that possible. Because I think it's an important thing to remember why sort of you can't ever stop protesting, or you can't ever stop standing up, and
Right.
and maybe you don't protest, maybe you just tell the story and then you support your kids as they protest. And I think as you shared, this is a very good example. Your parents and your grandparents protest, so then the child, the grandchild takes it on next. But
Yeah.
just a beautiful example of that. And so now in terms of now somebody had wanted me to ask this question, though, because the political party, though, that introduced this treaties bill, are they the dominant party? Is this look like, so this bill you said it's going to fail, but is it likely, is something going to happen in the future? Are they going to try to do something else? What do you think is going to happen? Are there going to have to be more protests like this? What is your sense on the ground?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. So the party that introduced it, they're not the majority. They're a very, very small party. They only got a small number of votes, but because of the way our political system works, so three parties had to join together to be able to get enough to win the election. So the coalition, we call it, the three parties. And yeah, so they're just one of the small ones. So to be part of the coalition, we believe what happened, behind the scenes was they said to the one that got the most votes, okay, we'll be part of your coalition with you, but we want your help getting this treaties principles bill, passed, of course, is what they ultimately want. And the National Party, they were supposedly what they're telling the media and what they're saying is, we agreed to help support it past for the first reading, but we're not going to support it for the second or third. Now, this is the thing. They could change their mind and say, actually, we are going to support it now. They would be stupid to do so because it's really a resounding number of people who are either support it or they just like don't really care about it. But the ones, who oppose it or they don't really care about it. But the ones who actually support it is not a big number. But yeah, we don't know. I don't trust the National Party to do what they say. They could, very much come back and say, actually, no, we are going to support it. And it could carry on into the second and third readings. So what the push now has been, before the push was join the Hīkoi and show your opposition in person. And if you can't show it in person, then do it online, share about, the Hīkoi, share about what's happening, and support that way. Now the push is on actually writing out submissions, because the next part of this process is it passed the first reading. It's eventually going to have a second reading, but in that time, we have time to make submissions, which have to be written, to say what we feel about it. And so right now there are submission parties happening all over the country where people are getting together and writing out their submissions to say that they oppose the bill. And so we really want as many people as possible to fill out that paperwork. So there's some templates that are floating around that people can use if they want to. And then we're just being encouraged to speak on it and share our written testimony about why we oppose the bill. And so, so it's kind of amazing that this is still continuing on. People still are able to show their opposition to the bill. I'm going to a party tomorrow night where the main focus is that we're all going to sit around and write out our submissions and send them in, this is how we're empowering people to use their voices. And the reason why we're so strong about that is because the people who support the bill are the kinds who will fill out submission forms and send them in. So we're kind of like, we're trying to counter that, But I saw an interview yesterday. They were interviewing people in like Christchurch or somewhere, south of here where there aren't many Maori people, and asking them, do you oppose or support the bill? And they were like, oh, we support it. And then they said to them, oh, why? And they were like, I don't know. Like they haven't done the research. They don't know. And that is a point that I did want to bring up. I talk about the treaty on my tours, and some of my tours even incorporate going to Waitangi, seeing where the document was signed, going through the museum and finding out more about it. So unfortunately, some people who come on my tour and sit on my bus with me know more about the Treaty of Waitangi than people who have lived here for many generations. It's an embarrassment. They use things like, oh, it's complicated, but actually it's only 3 articles. It's not that complicated. Basically, we understand that you are coming here and we welcome you and we will take care of you. And that's what we've been doing since the beginning. We want to keep control of our treasures, and also we want to have the same rights as British citizens. That's all the treaty says. And yet there's been all this misinterpretation of it. There's, they're trying to add in principles to clarify it. It doesn't need clarification. It's pretty straightforward. So that's kind of what's happening now, is that everybody is being encouraged to submit testimony about whether you support or you oppose the bill.
No, thank you. Thank you for that. Now, we're almost out of time, but I've got a few questions that have come in. And so I'm going to, if anyone else has any questions, send them real fast. But so one question though is, one of the things that Chamorros look to the Maori for, of course, is your language programs. And so somebody who teaches our native language here in Guam says that they've heard that part of what the Maori face now is attacks on your language programs. Is this true?
Yeah, the government that's in at the moment, the coalition government, have taken funding away from some of the programs that are for Māori language. They're definitely targeting, programs that benefit us. And the way they do that is by saying, oh, we don't want to support things that are only for one group. and not for everyone. And the thing with our language programs are, they're not just for us. So if you're not Māori by blood, you can still send your kids to Māori school, and people do. You can still come and study Māori language with us. I'm in a full immersion language class every day, and I've got 2 non-Māori people who are learning right along with me. So our language programs are not just for Māori, but unfortunately, they are an easy way for the government to save money by pulling funding away from programs that have been successful, proven to be successful, and yet still easily targeted when our government needs to save money. So yeah, but I mean, carry on with your programs. It's so important to keep our language. I'm so, happy and privileged that I've been able to learn. So I've been sitting in night classes for years. I now sit in day classes where I have to study in full immersion and speak my language, and it's traumatic and it's hard and it's, but it's so worth it. So for any language learners out there, I know the journey that you're on, and it's a lifelong journey, right? We'll never get to the end. We'll always be learning, but it's so worth it. And when I see the Haka in my language, I just know that, man, without our language, it does not work.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And another quick question is about the image together for Te Tiriti behind you. And so somebody wants to know more about that. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that symbolizes and what that means?
Yeah, so a lot of us were using it during the Hīkoi. So it's kind of, and you see it all around the country now. So yeah, it's become definitely a symbol. And this is the thing. That's what we marched for, together for the treaty. It wasn't just Māori. The whole focus of the march was to be together, and that's what people who oppose us and people who criticize us, it's what they don't understand, is that this march was for everyone to come along and support Māori.
Oh, thank you. And I really appreciate your point there too about anyone can learn the Maori language. It's a simple but a powerful point, and it really is something that a lot of the more conservative minded, a lot of the negative rhetoric, that political rhetoric that's out there, that's becoming more dominant nowadays, it's built on this idea that, I don't want to know about you. I don't care about you. If you have too much, I need to take from you. I should get everything. It's a very selfish, it's very, it's the opposite of community. It's the opposite of understanding. It's the opposite of empathy. But, it's that idea that, if Aotearoa, if New Zealand is really your home, then why can't you understand that there was a language that was here long before your ancestors came here?
Yeah.
And part of your connection to this place should be that you should respect that. And maybe you might never become fluent in Te Reo. Maybe you're never going to become fluent, but you shouldn't be a jackass about it. Try to take it away from other people and say that it's not important, but you got to recognize. And so thank you for your position on that everybody should learn it, everybody can understand it. And that position that somebody says we should take money away from this because this is not for everybody. No, it is for everybody.
Yeah. And our media actually is really leading the way. So when you watch the nightly news here in New Zealand, they start with our language. They use our language a lot throughout the weather forecast. They use the traditional names for places and the English names, like they use them both. So it's really kind of forcing people to, if you want to be part of the conversation that the rest of us are having, you actually do need to learn the basics. But the promising story that I can share with you about that is my sister is a Maori language teacher and a Maori performing arts teacher at the largest elementary school in Auckland, mostly non-Maori students. They're a mix of white, Asian, there's a few like new African migrants. Indians. There's all kinds of different kids coming through there. And Māori language is not compulsory in New Zealand in elementary school. We would love for it to be, but it's not right now. But there's a lot of schools that, even though it's not compulsory, they understand the importance of it. And so they hire people like my sister to come in and teach the kids. And the kids are amazing. They love learning Māori language and hearing Māori stories and performing the haka. So we're winning over that generation. And I do feel like by the time they come up, there won't be this negative, rhetoric, like you're saying, against Māori language, because those kids learned the basics when they were in elementary school, and they never knew a world where they couldn't pronounce the name of the Māori place that they live in, that they've always known how to pronounce it correctly. And those kids are having an influence on their parents. My sister will say to them, if you hear somebody saying this, they're wrong, and you just tell them that they're wrong, and you teach them how to say it the right way. And those kids are going home and telling their parents, you're saying that wrong. It's actually this. And the parents take it from the kids in a way that they would never take it from a Māori person who tried to correct them. They would say, oh, I've lived here my whole life and I've always said it like this. But when it's their little 8-year-old who comes home and says, oh, Dad, you're saying that wrong, then they'll be like, really? And they're much more open to changing when it comes from a little voice of a person who lives in their house, So there's so much promise and there's so much hope for the future.
Thank you. And so we could keep on going, but we are about out of time. And so I want to give you a final chance to just share some thoughts or any perspective that you have at all, whether about Glorious or about anything else, but just any final thoughts before we close this episode?
So my philosophy is just about living your best glorious life, whatever that looks like for you. And for me, that looks like, empowering people in my community, and also, representing my community in the best way that I can. I sent my aroha out to everybody around the Pacific, those who are struggling with their own, Indigenous and sovereignty and rights and issues. We're all just trying to live our best glorious lives. And so, kia kaha, which means be strong, take inspiration wherever you can get it. If our haka, inspires you, then that's amazing. So, really just kind of keep on with the struggles that you have in your part of the Pacific. We see you, we support you as well. We want all of our Pacific people to thrive and be strong. So, kia kaha.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much again, Louisa. And I want to also give a special shout out again to Jordine Uggan for making this episode possible by connecting me to Louisa. And Sidus Masi, Louisa, Sidus Masi, Jordine, Sidus Masi para todos Samsung ni umeiga para uma ekung episode. Este